Welcome to this series of webinars on how to nominate for the New South Wales Training Awards. We're joined today by Amanda from Training Services New South Wales, and we're also joined by Megan from 1300 Apprentice. Megan has nominated a number of people for the New South Wales Training Awards, so we really do like having her input and her expertise as part of these webinars. Today's webinar is focused on how to prepare an application. It's a really important one we're doing a series of 5 webinars. This is a critical one because it actually takes you through the process of preparing and submitting an application. So that's the focus, where one of the recommendations was to provide practical guidance and advice on how to prepare an application, because there can be a perception sometimes that it's a difficult process. It's certainly thorough. It has to be thorough because the awards recognise excellence and outstanding achievement in vocational education and training. But look, the benefits are worth it. So what we're going to do is we've got a series of questions that we'll go through. We'll answer those and just share our thoughts on trying to kind of demystify the process of actually preparing. So the first question we've got is, when you nominate an individual for the New South Wales Training Awards, how do you actually prepare the application? Now, what I'm going to do is break this down into 2 parts: how you actually prepare the application and how you submit it. I think the most time goes into the preparation. So if you do a good preparation, the submission process should be pretty straightforward and fairly quick. So look, from the start, the very first thing you have to do is, once you've identified a potential applicant that you think would be a viable person to actually apply for the New South Wales Training Awards, you need to make a few decisions and you need to gather some information. And the very first thing you need to do is you'll need to identify the award category that you think that person should apply for. Now, there are 7 individual award categories for the New South Wales Training Awards. I'll just go through them quickly. There's Apprentice of the Year, Trainee of the Year, School-Based Apprentice Trainee of the Year, Vocational Student of the Year, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Student of the Year, Vet in School Student of the Year, and Vet Trainer Teacher of the Year. So those 7 awards. So if you once you've decided on an appropriate category, you need to actually just have a look at the selection criteria and the eligibility conditions and just make a decision whether or not the individual actually meets the conditions for that particular award. The best way to do that is to go to the Training Services New South Wales website and actually download the actual selection criteria. Look, they're fantastic. They're these little 2-page PDF documents. They're really simple to read. And they just tell you, look, you must meet these eligibility conditions, and here's the selection criteria for each of those 7 individual awards. So look, that's it. You go to Training Services New South Wales website, then go to the Training Awards and how to enter, and you can download those. It's Training Awards eligibility. Sorry, that's where you actually get the criteria. Now, there's also this really handy 1-page guide. It's titled "How to Nominate for an Individual Award Category." That can be downloaded from the website, and that is at the Training Awards How to Enter site. But you'll find your way around it. It's fantastic. These are really helpful resources to have. And you can also download the terms and conditions for the awards. Now, the eligibility requirements are slightly different for each of the awards, so you really do need to make sure that you've got the right award category and they meet those conditions. Once you've confirmed they're actually eligible to enter, you need to probably look at dividing the application process into. Now, Megan will probably talk about this as well, but it's probably a good idea to make this division, because it's what you do as a nominator and what they do as a nominee, or what they do as an applicant. And so what I'll do is I'll just first of all focus on what you need to do as a nominator. So once you've determined they're eligible, you've made a decision on what particular award they're actually going to actually apply for, then you need to sit down and you need to write a brief explanation. It's called nominator comments, a brief explanation of why you're actually nominating the individual for the award. Now, this has a 400-word limit, so it's just a little bit over one A4 page, and it's really it acts as your endorsement letter for the applicant. And what you need to do is just to do a bit of an overview of their vet course, so their personal skills, their job skills, their training pathway, just an overview of what they're doing. But then just trying to give a few sentences of what you think sets them apart from the rest, a few examples of how they're going above and beyond everyone else or other people that you know are doing a similar course, because this really helps the judging panel, because the judging panel get 12, 10, 8 applications and they have to make a decision on them, and sometimes it's this information that just allows them to see that one person has the edge over other people. So it's really good that you identify this in your nominated comments. And also, it's a good idea in your nominated comments to identify why you think that person will make a good vet ambassador. And a vet ambassador is someone that just promotes vocational education and training as a result of their winning in the New South Wales Training Awards. So that's your role as the nominator. That's what you have to write. In terms of what they have to do, as the actual applicant, the nominee, they need to do two things. They need to prepare a very brief response on a short overview of their vet training. Now, this is only 300 words. And in this, they identify why they chose vet as a training pathway, why they probably chose the qualification they're doing, and why they chose the industry sector they're doing it in. So if they're maybe doing a Certificate 2 in hospitality operations, they'd say why they chose that qualification, why they're interested in hospitality, why they went down a kind of a vet pathway. So just 300 words, they'll need to actually kind of write that. Then they need to provide an individual response to each of the selection criteria. Each award has 4 criteria, and they need to do a response to each of those. And I can't stress the importance of this because their response to those criteria is the most important part of the application. Everything else is incidental. This is the critical part. Now, individuals sometimes may struggle with this. So as a nominator, you may need to help them through the process. So it may be that you sit down with them, they articulate their responses to those criteria, and you write them down for them. It's really important they're part of this process, and it's really important that they articulate their responses to the criteria, because when they sit down in front of a judging panel, the panel will ask them questions that are very specific to those selection criteria, and it becomes so apparent. I've spoken to judging panels about this. It becomes so apparent when an individual is sitting in front of a panel and they've got no idea what's actually written in their application because someone else wrote it. So look, it's really a good idea to resist the temptation to write it all yourself. Really get them involved. If they're not comfortable writing it themselves, you can, like I said before, maybe just write it on behalf of them as they say it to you. Now, and you also look, once you actually get it, you do need that in an electronic format, so maybe in a Word file or an email, because when you come to put it into the actual online submission, it really helps that you've got that all gathered together as an electronic file. So they're the two parts. You've done your nominated comments, they've done their short overview of why they're training, and they've addressed their criteria. Once you've done those two, then you need to gather just some basic information. I'm just going to go through a list of things you need to gather that you have together when you actually go online to actually make the application. So you need to identify what their trade or their vocation is, what they're actually doing, their training. And that's just simple. It's just either retail, bakery, or hospitality, or education, or early childhood education and care, conservation, land management. Actually, just what they're actually doing their training in. You need that. You need the certificate level of the qualification they're doing, so either Certificate 2, Certificate 3, whatever it is. The expected completion date of their training, they must complete their training within the eligibility period for the New South Wales Training Awards. If they're doing an apprenticeship, a traineeship, or a school-based apprenticeship or traineeship, they will have a contracted training in place, so you'll need their training contract ID because the application will require that. Details of the registration, their registered training organisation or RTO, including the RTO's ABN, and details of their employer, including the employer's ABN. So this is just all minimal data, but you need to just gather it, just have it together when you actually submit the application. You need a couple of supporting documents, a minimum of 2. There's some mandatory supporting documents for most of the awards, particularly proving that the evidence that they are going to complete their training within the eligibility period. And then there are other supporting documents like resumes and kind of reference letters and certificates, and maybe even action photos that you can upload. Now, there's a limit on those. You can only upload 5, and each file size has a file kind of capacity of 5 megabytes. You can upload PDFs or JPEGs. So gather them together and then just pick the best of those attachments. And then finally, if you've got the capacity, you can even get them to produce a video, a very, very kind of short, succinct video on that shows why they're nominating for the awards, why they're fantastic, what the great things that they're achieving. So you gather all of those together and you have them all in place before you actually go to the next level, which is actually submitting the application. So that's the preparation phase. You do your nominated comments, they respond to the criteria, you gather all of this information together, and then you're ready to actually submit the application. So before we go on to the submission stage, I'd really like to bring Megan in. Megan's done this many times. Megan, how do you prepare the nominator comments for an individual? Because when I look at it, sometimes I think, what would you write about an individual in those comments?
How I prepare from the beginning on a Word document, I'd start with some dot points, highlighting the nominees' areas of excellence in areas relating to job skills, training, industry knowledge, and their personal skills. Then I expand on those dot points, give it more depth, and really sell why your nominee deserves to be recognised for their achievements. Go hard with this. Don't undersell them. You need to go over 400 words to start with. That's fine. You can edit it and come backwards later. Basically, just start big. Take out the little stuff later. When you think you're finished with it, then take it to other people. Let the people that your nominee has been associated with, get their thoughts on it. They may think of things that you didn't, so then you can keep improving that document before you then cut and paste it back onto the online application.
Fantastic. Think big. I love it. It's great. And look, can I ask you just another question? I mean, how do you find the process of actually preparing an application? What I just described, getting all that information together. I mean, how do you see it as someone that's done it many times?
I actually enjoy it. I find it really inspiring. As I said previously, I get to learn so many amazing things about the learner that I didn't already know, which really makes that whole experience even more interesting and worthwhile.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, look, what we'll do is we'll go on to the next question, and this is when you nominate an individual for the New South Wales Training Awards, how do you submit the application? So this is the next stage. So you've done all of that preparation. This is the submission process. Now, look, applications to the New South Wales Training Awards are done via an online portal, and it's highly recommended that you sit down with the person that you're nominating with and gather all that information before you even sit down and do this, because otherwise you'll be going backwards and forwards all over the place. So to start, you go to the online portal. I'm going to read it out, but it's available. The links to it are on the Training Services New South Wales website. But the portal is trainingawardsnewsouthwales.awardsplatform.com. That's trainingawardsnewsouthwales.awardsplatform.com. And when you go to it, when you initially get to the site, you register your details. Now, it's really important when you get there the first time. You may feel an urge to put the person you're nominating as the name there, but you don't. At that very first screen, it's you. You put your name, your email, and your password. So you actually register. Once you do that, you get a verification email. It's standard practice. You click on the link in the verification email, you go back to the portal, and you're ready to start the submission. But it's really important, don't put the person you're nominating in at that initial stage. So once you're taken back after you verify your contact details, you just scroll to the bottom of the page and you select Start New Submission. And then you're off. That's when you actually start preparing the actual online submission. And I'm just going to quickly go through the submission process, because there are 6 tabs or 6 sections that you actually have to address as you put in this information. The first one, or the first tab, is called Start Here. And the first thing you do is you select the individual's region. Now, there are 9 regions within the New South Wales Training Awards, and it's really, really important that you get the right one. Luckily, there's a region check tool on the actual submission that you can go in and check, and it's all focused on the actual individual's postcode. Now, if you get this wrong, what happens is their application goes to the wrong regional committee, because each of the 9 regions in New South Wales have a regional committee that actually administer the regional awards, and they're the first ones to get this application. So it has to go to the right region. So make sure you put in the right region. When I say region, it's things like Western New South Wales, Riverina, Hunter, Central Coast, Central Northern Sydney, but the region check tool that you can use there will absolutely make it confirm that it'll go to the right place. And during the independent review last year of the New South Wales Training Awards, this was one of the key issues that came up all the time: applications going to the wrong region. So really make sure you get the right region. The other thing you need to put in here is the award category that you're actually nominating them for, and you put in their name. So once you've done that, you just click Save and Next, and you move to the next section. You can click Save and Close, and you can come back to an application if you want to, or you can do it in one hit. That's whatever's easiest for you. But really, if you've got all the information together, this process doesn't take very long. The actual submission process, it can take 15, 20 minutes, and bang, you've got it done. So that's the first tab. The second tab is entry details. And this is where you put, and this is where you need to have gathered this information beforehand, because you need to put in the individual's date of birth, their address and their contact details, their trade or vocation. You would have nominated that before, the certificate level of the qualification that they're doing, the completion date of their training. This is critical because this determines whether or not they are within the eligibility period. Their training contract ID, if they're doing a traineeship or an apprenticeship or a school-based traineeship or apprenticeship, details of the registered training organisation and details of their employer. So that entry details is just all that stuff you would have gathered together, and really you should be able to just cut and paste that in from a Word document. It shouldn't take very long at all. And once you've got that done, click Save and Next, and you move on to your nominator's comments. If you've collected, if you've got this ready already, like Megan was saying before, you simply cut it from a Word document, paste it into the field, and it's done. So it's just all those comments that why you're nominating them, why you think they're great, and why you think they make a good vet ambassador. If you've written it beforehand, it's so much easier. The next tab, or the next section, which is the fourth section, is called Entry Criteria, and this is the individual's responses against the selection criteria. This is the most important part of the application. So you will have hopefully got the responses. You may have even typed them yourself when the individual told them to you. Cut and paste those responses into each of the fields, into each of the 4 fields. And then that's once again done very quickly if you've got them electronically in the first place. You can type them directly in if you want to, but it's going to take a long time. It's a lot easier to have them prepared firstly. The next section, the 5th section, is called Supporting Attachments, and this is where you upload all of those attachments that you collected, remembering that there's a maximum of 5 and a minimum of 2, and the maximum file size for those is 5 meg. So that's where you upload the attachments, and that's where you also upload the video if you had the capacity to put a video together. A video is not important, it's not mandatory, you certainly don't have to do it, but there is the option of uploading a video on that tab. And the last tab, or the last section, number 6, is called Declaration. Now this is important because it's a checklist to say that you've met all the requirements of the submission. And the very last checkbox is confirmation that the individual understands their commitment of where, if they were to win a regional or a state award, what they're prepared to actually meet those requirements, which means they will attend award ceremonies. If they win at the state level, they'll attend a professional development session in Sydney. They'll attend media events and all those kinds of things. So you really must discuss this with the individual before you submit it, because by selecting that checkbox and submitting the application, they're basically saying they're going to abide by all those conditions. So make sure you've run them past them, and they're actually ready to actually apply and actually go through the process and commit to actually going to those ceremonies if they actually win. So it's important to have that box checked. Once you've gone through those 6 sections and completed them, that's it. You just click submit, and the online submission's finished. If you've prepared well, it really shouldn't take very long at all. The preparation process is the critical part. So that's pretty much all that's required of the submission process. So look, I might bring Megan back in. Megan, you've done it many times. How do you find the online submission process? I've only done it a couple of times, and I found it fairly easily, but I'd just be really interested in how you've found it.
Look, it's pretty straightforward. Like any application process, just follow the instructions, read the information carefully, do your research, and answer those questions. The more effort you put in, the more chance you have of progressing to the next stage. You can access extra support tools and tips via the New South Wales Training Awards pages online also.
Fantastic. And look, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone that's just about to log in and they're just about to submit an application to the New South Wales Training Awards and they're looking a bit kind of trepid about it, what would you say to them?
A couple of things. Again, go to the Training Services New South Wales website and do your research first. Check the eligibility criteria. I can't stress that. It's so important before you spend your time doing all of this. And read the selection criteria before you start doing that. Write the answers to the selection criteria on a Word document first, and then you can cut and paste it on the application form once you have it right. But make sure you save your information regularly on that Word document to avoid having to do it all over again. I've been stung like this multiple times on multiple occasions, and it's not a fun experience doing that. So just make sure you save it. It's really important. For your nomination to stand out against the others too, you must explain and include evidence and clear examples of what makes your nominee so exceptional. Last thing probably is just spend extra time reading and considering all the criteria so that you can give your best and most relevant answers. Be prepared to do several drafts to get it right. Understanding the award criteria is crucial in the process too. So make sure that you don't go over it, research, spend time on it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Megan. Look, we'll move on to a few questions that we've received, and they're very, very simple and short questions, or short answers, I should say. One of the questions is, do you have to apply online or can you submit a hard copy application? Look, all applications have to be done via the online portal. You can't submit a hard copy. You can't even submit an electronic file. It all has to be done via that online portal. Another question. Does it cost anything to submit an application to the New South Wales Training Awards? No, there's absolutely no application fee for the awards. It's free. You simply submit via online, but you do have to have all of that supporting documentation. So look, that's pretty well it. That's covered. I mean, it is. Look, I'm certainly not saying it's a quick process. That preparation does take time, but like Megan was saying, it can be an incredibly interesting phase. You find out a lot of stuff, and it's for such a good cause. So. The key things to remember: prepare well when you nominate, and absolutely make sure that the nominee is an active contributor through the process so that they understand what they're actually getting themselves in for, and they understand what's been said in that selection criteria, so that when the judge panel asks them questions about the application, they actually know what's been said. So look, that's the summaries. That's kind of what we've been focusing on here for this particular webinar. Megan, look, any concluding thoughts on how to prepare an application for the awards?
Yeah, look, if you want your application to stand out, you need to be invested in that nominee and passionate about recognising that nominee's achievements. Don't hold back. This is about promoting the nominee, their excellence and their results. Be bold and aim to hit them with your highlights up front. Make it interesting and easy for the judges to read through and identify your nominee as a contender. Also, it's really important that you remind your nominee, whether they progress or not, how well they've done to get to this point. Just being nominated is such a big achievement, and it can also be included on their resume.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Megan. That's such a good way to wrap up this webinar. Thanks so much for participating and for listening, and look, we'll see you next time. Goodbye and thanks again.